And welcome back, our dear viewers. Now it's time for our daily press review for today, Wednesday, the 25th of November. And we are very much delighted to have our dear guest, Dr. Mohamed A Azim. He is a professor of political science. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for being our guest for today. And we start our press review from المصري اليوم newspaper. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi received on Tuesday the Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu, and the meeting was attended by Minister of Defense Lieutenant General Sadi Subhi, as well as Russian Deputy Defense Minister and Russia's Ambassador to Cairo. The presidential spokesman, Ambassador Alay Yusuf, said that the Russian Defense Minister conveyed greeting of President Vladimir Putin, the Russian President, to President al-Sisi. He stressed the depth and distinguished relation between the two countries. The Russian minister said that Moscow appreciates the Egyptian role in achieving security and stability in the Egyptian region, in Egypt and the whole region of the Middle East. He confirmed that his country aspires to strengthen the existing cooperation in all fields, especially in the military field, to take advantage of the momentum in the bilateral relations during the recent period. Of course, the Russian-Egyptian relations, we have witnessed many incidents, many cooperation in different fields. We have seen the signing of the nuclear deal for the Dab'a nuclear plant. We have seen, of course, the cooperation after the crash of the Russian plane in Egypt. So how do you see and evaluate the Egyptian-Russian relations and the importance of the visit by the Russian Defense Minister to Cairo?
Firstly, we could really see that the mainly relationship in the region according to recently ongoing events. And after about this, the crash of plane in Peninsula of Sinai, and really after going on with, event by ISIS in region, and especially in Syria and Iraq, we could really figure out the virtual relationship between Egypt and Russia, and the mainly base of the relationship between both of countries. After the signature of the nuclear plant in Dab'a, and they emphasized about the relationship yesterday between the Ministry of Defense of Russia and Mr. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. Most of I think the express presented the mainly speech between both of the representative of the two countries, and try to emphasize the role of Egypt in this I think relationship in this very critical period in the region. Mostly of the issues where we try to express over here, and mostly of the news, this very critical very critical period. And I think the importance of this visiting come from is a support from most of the country to France. However, really we could really find any support for Egypt as well as the France after the Paris Paris event. So the double standard of mainly countries it really just distinguish the kind of relation between Egypt and other countries. But we really can find the Russia how really support and make more help for Egypt in this very critical situation.
Indeed. And still with المصري اليوم, and we read 7 people, including judicial officials and security personnel, were killed on Tuesday, and 10 were injured in northern Sinai restive city of El Arish in the attacks on a hotel where judges supervising the parliamentary elections were residing. The Interior Ministry said that suicide bomber was driving a car bomb into the hotel when security forces opened fire on him, causing the car to explode away from the hotel and the bomber to die. Another attacker wearing an explosive belt later snuck into the hotel kitchen and blew himself up, while a gunman went up to one of the rooms and opened fire, killing a judge. Ambulances rushed to the scene as gunshots were heard following the explosion. A main coastal highway in the city was shut down following the attack. Of course, we are very sorry for this very sad attacks against the judges, and of course we would like to pay condolences for the families of the victims. Sir, how do you read that in light of the very mean intentions of trying to create chaos because of the success of the parliamentary elections? Everything went smooth. So how do you read that?
If we really try to I think read other news about the shooting for the Tunisian president and his He's really, you know, the car yesterday in Tunisia.
Yes,
So
and 12 people were killed,
it's kind of just as I mentioned, ongoing even to this, you know, the risk and threat of tourism, not just for Egypt, for most of other countries. And you know, this announcement by the Mr. President of Tunisia and El-Sibsi yesterday about this, you know, just, the threats of tourism, not just for Tunisia, for other countries too, and most of the region and all the worldwide. I think one of the very you know, just critical and remarkable issues related here to you know, how really Egypt can not just you know, thinking as a naive person, just not about the role of the men and superpower to supporting the extremes groups right now, because I think we have to not just depending on you know, make invitation for the world to support about just this kind of threats for the region. We have to I think work on the ground to make a really critical, I think, you know, this practical coalition with other countries like Tunisia and other countries in the region, especially Russia and other, because we really need something different, as we have to think out of the box about both these issues, because we have to stop this kind of violence, okay, not just by just internal troops, by supporting from other countries, by supporting with some, you know, this relationship with other region countries like Saudi Arabia or others. So it's not just event. We really have to bat it by. It's a very critical point. We have to work about it in recently and the next days too.
And we read now from أخبار اليوم newspaper. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi met on Tuesday with the Minister of Environment Khalid Fahmy to review the preparations for Egypt participating in the United Nations Conference on Climate Change in Paris, scheduled for the 30th of November till the 11th of December. Presidential spokesman Ambassador Ala Youssef said the minister reviewed the efforts exerted in the framework of preparations for strong and effective participation in the conference in light of the Egyptian taking the office of the African file. Noteworthy that Egypt has been appointed recently as the president of the African Heads of State on the Climate Change Committee, in addition to its presidency of the Conference of the African Ministers of Environment. Sir, how do you see the importance and significance of Egypt attending the conference on climate change, which is scheduled to take place in France on the 13th of November?
According to the last speech by Mr. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi in United Nations last September, he tried to mention about, you know, that the role of Egypt too, and you know the change of the climate change in the worldwide, and the importance of, you know, this cooperation between all the countries in the world about this issue. Moreover, at this point, I think this news can really present you know, the changes of the Egyptian foreign policy, which will try to, you know, make more participation in, especially in the conference diplomacy, like you know, attend this kind of you know, this conference could really represent the view and, you know, the thought by the Egyptian decision maker about this, the issue about the change of climate, and moreover about the you know, that idea about how really make more vision about, you know, just developing and sustainable development in the world, you know, it's just which means preparation more to the strongest or more strong preparation for the development in the country like Africa. Moreover, we really mentioned about the similar speech by Mr. President in the last conference in India by the Indian African Summit over there, represented that, you know, the exchange climate could be, I think, more risky for most of the country, especially in developing countries. So it's very important participation by Egyptian, you know, decision. I think Egyptian foreign policy in this event.
Indeed. Moving to the Egyptian Independent, from where we read, UN Chief Energy Expert Yusri Abu Shadi said in a recent interview with Al Masri al-Yom that the company building the Egyptian nuclear reactor is building similar ones in 11 countries, adding that Egypt chose the safest type of reactors in the world. He added that Russia is an expert in this field and that nuclear power is the cheapest and most devoid of pollutant. It cannot be compared with any types of energy. It saves oil and natural gas, which are non-renewable. According to Abu Shadi, a nuclear reactor lasts for 60 years. Its fuel is renewed every 2 years at a very cheap cost. How do you see that, of course, statement by Mr. Abu Shadi regarding the safety of the nuclear power plant and the fact that the company, the Russian company which is building this power plant is building similar ones in 11 countries?
According to what we hear from the opposite voices last week after that, you know, the signed agreement about the first atomic plant between Egypt and Russia. I think this kind of you know, reply by Mr. Abu Shadi try to, I think, explain for all the Egyptians.
Because many people were starting to talk about the hazards of having a nuclear reactor in Egypt.
And I think about these issues, not just for, you know, last years, but after tsunami in I think
Japan.
Japan, okay,
and
4 years ago. Chernobyl, like 20 years ago, it's kind of just make more risk and threats for the issues of and thought for most of the citizens in the world about the security of this kind of planet, and how really make a new vision about that. You know, moreover, this kind of planet which make I think can deal with Russia about it. It's 5th generation atomic planet, so it's more safety than other, like mostly of atomic planning in the origin all worldwide. You know, but I think we have to make more reading about that and more focusing about this issue toward what really
a better understanding of the situation.
Yeah, especially.
Moving to Al Ahram newspaper, we read NATO member Turkey on Tuesday shot down a Russian warplane on the Syrian border. An act President Vladimir Putin said would have serious consequences and has its repercussion for ties between two key warriors in Syria. The Turkish army said that the planes was shot down by 2 F-16s after violating the Turkish airspace 10 times within a 5-minute period, an account challenged by Moscow, which said it was over Syria. The Turkish television pictures showed the jet exploding and crashing in a ball of flames into the Syrian mountain. Turkish media said one pilot had been captured by the rebel forces in Syria after both ejected the plane, while Syrian opposition sources said one was dead and another was missing. More details about this incident in the following report.
Turkey shot down a Russian warplane on the Syrian border on Tuesday, sending tensions spiraling as Russian President Vladimir Putin warned Ankara its stab in the back would have serious consequences. NATO chief said the military alliance stood by member Turkey after the incident, but echoed appeals for calm from other world leaders as fears grow of clashes between coalition and Russian planes in the skies over Syria. Turkey's military said the fighter was shot down by 2 of its F-16s after it violated Turkish airspace 10 times within a 5-minute period. The Turkish ambassador to the United Nations said in a letter to the Security Council that 2 Russian planes had flown a little into Turkish airspace for 17 seconds. But Moscow bitterly criticized Turkey for downing the Su-24 plane, which it insisted was in Syrian airspace, and claimed that one of the 2 pilots who ejected from the craft was killed by gunfire from the ground as he descended. Putin branded the shooting down of the aircraft a stab in the back committed by a company of terrorists, warning the strategic event will have serious consequences for Russian-Turkish relations. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov scrapped a planned visit to Turkey Wednesday and warned Russians against traveling to Turkey.
And to shed more light on the Turkish-Russian stalemate and the repercussions of the shooting of the Russian plane by Turkey. Sir, how do you read this incident which took place yesterday, the shooting of this Russian plane, which Turkey is saying is violating its airspace, while Russia is confirming that it was over the Syrian territories? So how do you read this escalation by Turkey?
After existing Russia existing on the ground in the Syrian war, so we really figure out the opposition from different kind of actors in the region, especially Turkey, which we find is Russian participation in this war could really make a different kind of dynamics and changes in the balance of power in the Syria crisis. So mostly we really support is the rebels of the rebels in Syria. Find out the Russia rule to support this Assad regime could really make more stress on this kind of crisis. So I think we really make this just make this all the vision without make more shadow about this the collapse of the Russian plane over borders between Syria and Turkey. So this I think this accident represented the just tension relationship between Russia and Western countries about the crisis of Syria, and moreover I think the role of Turkey of this confrontation between the Western country and Russia make more I think emphasize or make more remarkable comments about this event and just maybe later on issues. The comments by Mr. President Vladimir Putin about this escalation, representing this balancing scene about balancing reaction, because he understanding just how, why the Turkish aircraft should down the Russian plane. But at the same while, it's part of misunderstanding between Western and Russia about the Syrian crisis.
And moving to المصري اليوم, we read Egyptian stocks continue to decline on Tuesday amid concerns over the economic policies and rising the security worries. The details in the following report.
Stock market continued to decline on Tuesday. Benchmark EGX 30 fell more than 2% to record 6.321 points, continuing slipping from 7.143 at the beginning of the month, a 15% fall since then. However, foreign investors leaving the market have negatively impacted the CIB stocks. Monsef Morsi said he is the head of the financial and the investment arm of the bank Capital. Non-Arab foreign investors were net seller to the tune of £3 million on Tuesday, and Egyptian investors were net sellers at £19 million, while Arab investors were net buyers at £22 million. A state bank-led hike in interest rates for savings certificates has promoted analysis to anticipate the flotation of currency to save Egypt's depleting foreign reserves. The central bank then surprised the market by strengthening the pound against the dollar by 0.1%, a move that led to increased uncertainty over the monetary policy. Egypt is currently struggling to access foreign currency, a concern seen deepening by the rising fears of the region's security threatened by a possible escalation in Syria's war.
Welcome back. Sir, how do you see the performance of the Egyptian stock market? And yesterday we have seen a decline due to the selling operations by Egyptian and Arab investors.
The economic concern is especially one of the importance, this point on the Mr. President agenda. So mostly the event and mostly of, just participation from Egypt to other, countries try to figure out how we make, just more encouraged to, the participation of the Arab and foreign investors in Egyptian economy generally, and really could represent the role of highly just rate of the the stock market of Egypt, the stock market. So this kind of funding by the Kuwait Fund for the Economic Development, loan, it could be more, just emphasizing the collapse of some stock market rates after the, just escalation of the crash, sorry, by the Russian plane over there in Sinai, Venezuela, and Sinai.
Indeed. Dr. Mohamed A Azim, the Professor of Political Science, thank you very much, sir, for your input. And with this, our dear viewers, we come to the end of the press review for today. Now we'll go to a short break, and after that, we'll be back to resume the segments of the breakfast show. So don't go away.